Welcome back to Nation of Glory. A place where stories are not just told, they are felt. Where every journey, every fight, and every fall reminds us why we love this world of passion, pain, and power. Today, we walk into the heart of a man who stood tall, silent, and misunderstood. But inside, carried storms stronger than any opponent he ever faced. This is the story of Erick Rowan. When you look at him, tall, bearded, intense, you might see a monster. That's what the world once called him. But behind that mask, behind those cold eyes, lived a man named Joseph Ruud, a dreamer from Minnesota who once just wanted to make people feel something. Before the lights, before the crowds, before the Wyatt family, there was only a boy who believed that strength wasn't about size. It was about soul. Rowan didn't come from fame or privilege. He didn't grow up with doors already open, he had to break them down. And so, his journey began in the most brutal way wrestling offers, in the cold, dim halls of independent wrestling. Small shows. Tiny crowds. Long nights. The kind of places where every bruise is a lesson, and every cheer, a reward that money can't buy. He wasn't just fighting opponents, he was fighting obscurity, fighting to be seen. His path took him far from home. To Japan, a land where wrestling is treated like an art form, not entertainment. There, he trained with pro wrestling Noah, learning discipline, respect, and the soul of the sport. It was in those quiet Japanese dojos that Joseph Ruud became something more. He learned that power wasn't about shouting, it was about silence. That real strength isn't what people see in your arms. It's what burns in your heart. And that's where the seeds of Erick Rowan were planted, a warrior who didn't need words to make you listen. When WWE came calling in 2011, it wasn't the end of a journey, it was the beginning of a test. A test to see if the quiet man could roar loud enough for the world to hear. He signed, walked through the doors of the biggest wrestling company on earth, and entered a world that would soon change his destiny forever. But no one could have predicted the storm that awaited him: the Wyatt family. Bray Wyatt, the prophet of chaos. Luke Harper, the loyal brother. And Erick Rowan, the silent destroyer. Together, they weren't just a group, they were a cult of energy, a force of storytelling that blurred the line between nightmare and reality. When they walked out with those lanterns, the arena lights dimmed, the fireflies came alive, and millions felt something deep inside: fear, fascination, respect. And there, among the shadows, Rowan found his light. He didn't need the mic. He didn't need to talk. Every movement, every glance told his story. He was the silent hand of fate in the Wyatt family's dark world, the man who did the work, who stood by his brothers, who gave everything without ever asking for the spotlight. And that, my friends, is where the emotional heart of his story lies. Because sometimes the greatest heroes aren't the ones who talk the loudest, they're the ones who stand tallest in silence. But wrestling, like life, isn't fair. The Wyatt family, as powerful as they were, couldn't escape fate. Bray went his way. Harper went his way. And Rowan was left to find who he really was. Imagine that: years defined by a family, suddenly gone. The world no longer sees you as you, just as the man who used to stand beside someone else. That emptiness. That uncertainty. That's where real warriors are tested. Rowan didn't give up. He tried to find his place. From tag team gold to solo runs, from moments of destruction to quiet reflection, he fought to show the world that Erick Rowan wasn't just a follower, he was his own story. He carried the memory of his brothers in every match, in every look. He fought not just for wins, but for identity. For respect. For purpose. And then came one of the hardest chapters in his life: the loss of Luke Harper, known to the world as Brody Lee. When that news broke, the wrestling world cried as one. For Rowan, it was more than the loss of a friend. It was the loss of a brother, a piece of his soul. They had walked the same path, shared the same dream, and now one of them was gone. In that moment, Erick Rowan wasn't a wrestler. He wasn't a performer. He was just a man, broken, remembering laughter, pain, and the bond that only true brothers share. He stood in that silence once again, but this time, the silence was heavier than ever before. Fans saw him appear in tributes, saw tears in his eyes, and for once, the giant looked human. It was a reminder that behind every performer in that ring is a person who bleeds, who loves, who loses. That day, the world didn't just mourn Brody Lee. It felt for Erick Rowan. But you see, life has a way of turning grief into growth. And Rowan, instead of fading away, used that pain to rebuild. To find himself again. He took time away, exploring who Joseph Ruud was beneath the beard, beneath the mask, beneath the fame. He worked, he healed, and he remembered why he started this journey, not for fame, not for fear, but for the love of wrestling itself. And then, a new light. A return. A rebirth. When whispers began about the Wyatt Sicks, the return of that eerie energy, that haunting magic, fans around the world held their breath. Could it be? Could the family's spirit live again? And there he was standing once more, towering in the smoke, eyes burning with the fire of memories past and hope reborn. The world saw him not just as Erick Rowan, but as a survivor. A man who carried the legacy of those who came before him and the promise of what's still to come. For every fan who ever loved the Wyatt family, this wasn't just nostalgia, it was closure. It was redemption. It was proof that darkness can't exist without light, that loss can become purpose, and that family never truly dies. Erick Rowan's return wasn't just another WWE moment, it was an emotional chapter closing, and a new one beginning. He stood there, no words needed, and the crowd understood everything. The silence spoke louder than any promo could. And that's the beauty of his story. He never needed to be the loudest voice in the room. He became the heartbeat of quiet strength, the man who reminds us that power doesn't always come from noise. It comes from endurance, loyalty, and love. He showed the world that even when your path is filled with loss, even when your brothers are gone, you keep walking because their light walks with you. Every fan who's followed wrestling long enough knows that moments like this, moments of real emotion, are rare. Wrestling isn't just about wins and losses, it's about human stories. And Erick Rowan's story is one that speaks to anyone who's ever been underestimated, misunderstood, or left behind. Because he proved that even when your chapter seems over, you can always rewrite your destiny. When you watch him now, with the Wyatt Sicks, you're not just seeing a wrestler. You're seeing years of pain turned into purpose. You're seeing the spirit of Brody Lee, the wisdom of Bray Wyatt, and the soul of a man who refused to let silence define him. He's more than just muscle, he's memory. He's more than a villain, he's victory. He's not just Erick Rowan. He's Joseph Ruud, the man who never stopped believing. And maybe that's the real message here. In a world that often rewards noise over meaning, Erick Rowan chose meaning. In a business that often forgets, he remembered. And in a time where most give up, he rebuilt. That's not just wrestling, that's life. We all lose people. We all fall apart. But if we can find the strength to stand again, like Rowan did, then maybe we all have a little bit of Wyatt family inside us too. So, as the lights dim and the echoes of their old themes still haunt arenas, remember this: Erick Rowan's journey isn't just his. It's ours. It's every person who's ever lost someone, every dreamer who's ever fallen, every fighter who's ever been forgotten. And when he raises his head again, under those lights, we see ourselves standing tall after the storm. Because in the end, glory isn't given. It's earned through silence, suffering, and strength. And that's what makes Erick Rowan a true warrior of the ring, and of life. And that, my friends, is the story of a man who was once the shadow of giants, but learned that even shadows can become legends when the light is right. Thank you for watching Nation of Glory, the place where passion meets purpose, and every story reminds us why we believe in heroes. If this story touched your heart, if you felt even a spark of the emotion that drives men like Erick Rowan to stand tall again, then don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs a reminder that strength can be silent, and subscribe for more stories of triumph, loss, and redemption from the world of wrestling and beyond. This is your host, signing off from Nation of Glory. Until next time, keep believing, keep fighting, and remember, even in silence, glory speaks.